I'm sure you've seen the news, the Pfizer vaccine. People talk about the start of the end of the tunnel. The start of the end. There's light at the end of the tunnel. So talk us through it. Realistically, when do you think this, if it does proceed according to plan, when does this reach the far corners of the world?
So Pfizer have announced that their vaccine works. They're confident that it works, but they haven't yet sent all the information to the FDA in the US to get approval. I think that's going to be done maybe at the end of this month, maybe early December. The approval won't take long. So once it's approved, they can start administering the vaccines in the US, maybe in a few other parts of the world. Maybe the first injections go out at the end of December, early 2021. But it's going to take a long time to get through all the people in the US, Europe, other countries that should be vaccinated. And I don't think Pfizer will be the only vaccine that we end up using. I think there will be other vaccines as well.
Right. So just putting the two parallel stories together, obviously virus numbers going up and the world racing to get a vaccine in the hands of pretty much everybody, hopefully. I hate to ask this question. We're, I think, at 50 million number now in terms of confirmed cases. Do you think, looking at the pace, the rate of growth in cases, do you think we get 100 million before we actually get a vaccine available to everybody?
Yeah, I think that's almost certain to happen, unfortunately. I think now in the US and Europe, we're having second waves. Those are going to have to be controlled by more social distancing, maybe some more lockdowns in the short term. The numbers will come down, and then hopefully vaccines will be available maybe the second quarter, the third quarter of next year to really prevent third waves. But I think by then we will have had a lot more infections, unfortunately.
Ben, we're just getting a line crossing here in China, across the terminal. Actually, China saying that vaccine cooperation is the most effective weapon against the virus. China has been pushing for cooperation, of course, on the development of vaccines. Let's just get your sense on the production and then the rollout of the vaccine, because it seems that that is pretty essential and pretty consequential. We're going to get the approval, it seems, relatively quickly based on the data we have at the moment. Where are we in terms of production, in terms of this vaccine, and then rolling it out and distributing it? What are the challenges around distribution?
So Pfizer will want to collaborate with factories, companies around the world to manufacture their vaccine, maybe in China, maybe in India, maybe in other parts of the world, so that there can be more doses available more quickly. And there'll be royalties, of course, going back to Pfizer with that kind of arrangement. This particular vaccine is a little bit difficult to send out into different parts of the world because it's a very fragile vaccine. It needs to be stored at minus 80 degrees until shortly before it's used. And so many parts of the world wouldn't have that capacity to store vaccines at such a low temperature in large quantities. That is going to be an issue in some places. But as I said earlier, I think there will be other vaccines as well. We're not only going to rely on the Pfizer vaccine to bring an end to COVID. I think there will be other vaccines.
Right, and we're talking about China. We've got China that has vaccinated tens of thousands of people here already before you finish the testing. They say they're doing it in a safe manner. Are there concerns about the way that China's rolling out its vaccine?
It's certainly a risk, because if it turns out the vaccine doesn't really work very well, we don't know yet. If that were to happen, it would damage confidence in that vaccine and other vaccines as well. But if it turns out the vaccine does work really well, we'll see. Then it's really, they're getting ahead of the game. They're using the vaccine and they're getting more and more people vaccinated more quickly. And so they'll be able to go back to normal more quickly. And I think Russia have done the same thing as well.
Ben, on this efficacy number of over 90%, and obviously that was part of what really made the news here, how does that number change in your view as we go through this sort of testing and approval process?
I think we know in trials, the efficacy usually comes out a little bit better than in real life, because in trials, they can do everything really perfectly. They can store the vaccine in perfect conditions. The people come in to get it, and everybody's followed up really, really carefully. I'm not sure if we would end up with 90% effectiveness in real life once we start using it in larger and larger numbers. But I think it's really good news. It's really positive, because it also encourages us that other vaccines are going to work as well. We've been crossing our fingers that vaccines do work, because that's really how we get to the end of COVID.